How spike in fuel prices led to Kazakhstan's government resignation. A state of emergency has been declared in Kazakhstan and the government has officially stepped down following violent protest against a sharp and sudden increase in fuel prices. And look at how the crisis has unfolded. A sharp and sudden spike in fuel prices triggered a national crisis in Kazakhstan, with the government officially stepping down on Tuesday following days of violent protest across the country. Kazakh security forces on Thursday said that dozens of protesters and at least 8 law enforcement officials were killed during an operation to restore order in the main city. Almighty BBC reported Russia has sent in troops to assist security personnel in their efforts to restore order in the country. Kazakh President Kasim Zomat Tokayev requested the support of the Moscow-led Collective Security Treaty Organization CSTO military alliance comprising Russia, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. On Tuesday, Tokayev declared a two-week state of emergency in Almaty as well as western Mangisatu province, where thousands of protesters have seen storming government buildings and clashing with the police officials. Internet services were promptly shut off and messaging apps were banned. Just hours later, Tokayev accepted the resignation of the government in a bid to quell the violent protest and ordered the acting cabinet to reinstate price controls on liquefied petroleum gas. But the president's bold move didn't quite have the desired effect as ordinary Kazakhs continued to force their way into the offices of top government officials and capture police vehicles on Wednesday. Notably, Tokayev was among the leaders of five Central Asian nations who were invited to attend India's Republic Day celebrations later this month. So, why are Kazakhs protesting? Angry Kazakhs first look on the streets on Sunday after fuel prices doubled in the oil rich Central Asian nation when the government lifted price caps for LPG, commonly used in vehicles. The protest began in oil city of Zenau, where at least 16 oil workers protesting against poor working conditions were killed by the police in 2011. Demonstrators broke out and quickly turned violent in cities and towns across the country, in which is being called the biggest wave of protest in Kazakhstan's history. Protesters demanded the resignation of the government and lowering of LPG prices. They have argued that the jump in prices would cause a steep increase in food prices and deepen income inequality that has plunged the nation for decades. Just last year, inflation in the country was closing in on 9% year on year, the highest it has been in over 5 years, Reuters reported. More than 200 people have been detained in the protest so far. Demands for democracy. But cheaper fuel is only the tip of the iceberg. There has been a growing discontent among ordinary Kazakhs, both over rising income inequality, which has only worsened due to coronavirus pandemic and the lack of democracy. While the country has been able to attract millions of dollars worth of foreign investment by appearing politically stable, its authoritarian government has been widely criticized over the years for violating fundamental freedom. For instance, during the presidential elections of 2019, there were widespread reports of irregularities. The election took place after the country's long-time Soviet-era leader Nursultan Nazarbayev stepped down from his post. He was replaced by Tokayev, who is widely regarded as his hand-picked successor. Nazarbayev and his family, however, continued to enjoy a fair bit of power in the country. Several protests broke out calling for a boycott of the elections, one of the first instances where citizens were openly criticizing the government in a country where dissent is rarely tolerated. Even today, most of the anger is directed towards Nazarbayev, who is widely still considered the country's ultimate ruler. Given the growing anti-Nazarbayev sentiment, it is unsurprisingly that chants "the old man go away" has been echoing across the country this week. How did the government respond to the protest? Hours after declaring a state of emergency in Almaty and Magisatshtau, Tokayev dismissed the country's prime minister and his cabinet. He then appointed the country's first deputy prime minister Ali Khan Samilov as acting prime minister. In a televised address, he announced that he will be replacing Nazarbayev as the leader of the country's Security Council. He also dismissed the former president's nephew Samat Abbas from the position of first deputy head of the country's National Security Service. Late on Tuesday, he assured Kazakhs that authorities would soon be being down LPG prices to ensure stability in the country. According to The Guardian, he said the interim government would introduce a price cap of 50 tenge, about 8p a litre on LPG, roughly half the current market price in Mangisatu province. He also urged the action cabinet ministers to extend price controls to gasoline, diesel, and other socially important consumer goods. He condemned the protesters but said the situation was steadily improving in cities and towns after he declared the emergency. The recent crisis has caused considerable concerns in neighboring Russia and China, both of which are key strategic partners of Kazakhstan. Thank you.